My name's Heather Powell and I head up the property and construction sector here at Blick Rothenberg. I spent the mornings listening to the Chancellor's speech. It was a little disappointing. Unfortunately, this seems to be becoming a pattern. For those of you who have property businesses, be you significant investors in UK real estate or in property development companies, there are no changes. We've got very used to the term fiscal drag when talking about individuals, that gradual increase in the tax take as incomes accelerate ahead and all the allowances don't change. It's exactly what we're seeing for corporates now. No change in the rates of corporation tax, and probably most importantly for property companies, no change at the point where the corporate interest restriction bites at 2 million. When base rates were at 0.5%, that felt like quite a generous allowance. Now the UK base rate is 5.25%. That is nowhere near enough. However, we did have a few other announcements. The big headline that had been advertised ahead of time was the changes in the rules for furnished holiday lets. So individuals who own holiday cottages will now find that from 2025 they're in exactly the same regime as a buy-to-let landlord. The interest payable on their mortgages on these properties will be restricted. They won't be able to claim capital allowances. Their income won't count towards the calculation of the income upon which they can pay pension contributions. And probably even more important, when they come to sell that property, instead of being eligible for business relief and potentially a capital gains tax rate of 10%, they will be looking at a capital gains tax rate of 24%. Big, big leap. A lot of conjecture as to whether this will make a difference and make people look at their business model and consider switching from a very onerous holiday letting business to letting to locals on long-term tenancies. The only issue here that I would highlight is whilst there's a huge demand for local homes, what you are doing is stripping away a lot of income that is going into those regions. All the businesses that have been set up to serve those holidaymakers are going to have to look at their business plans, think about where their customer base is going to come from and whether they need to really refocus their businesses. Are there going to be jobs for these people who can actually stay in the area and find a home if the holiday business falls away? Whether the Chancellor's thought about that would be an interesting conversation to have. What else did we hear? Buy-to-let landlords are going to have see a fall in their capital gains tax liability from 28 to 24%. A tiny glimmer of good news for a sector which have felt as though they've been really battered by a huge increase in legislation and complexity in the tax regime. And then last but not least, stamp duty land tax change, not one that we were hoping to see, not one that was particularly forecast. Multiple dwellings relief has been abolished. And what multiple dwellings relief is if you buy more than one property, you can average the price of the properties that you buy and pay a lower rate of stamp duty land tax. It can bring the rate of stamp duty land tax down to 1%. This was really useful for buy-to-let landlords. They could buy 2 or 3 properties in a block and bring their stamp duty land tax liability right down. It's gone. They're going to have to pay the full stamp duty land tax. My conjecture there would be that's going to reduce the investment they make into those properties to make them really attractive to people to rent. Our thought is that this relief has been abolished because it was actually being used by people buying large properties with an annex within the grounds. Argument went that that was a second property and it could bring people's stamp duty land tax bills down by up to £90,000 when buying these large properties. It's a shame that the Chancellor hasn't addressed that abuse rather than getting rid of the whole relief. But overall, nothing really in there for property business, which is extremely disappointing because that's where we need to see significant investment and development in the UK, and a tiny little kernel of hope for the buy-to-let landlords. If you've got any questions, please give me a call or make contact with one of our team. Thank you.